worried about it not happening.
We're live.
Just pop it in there. Okay. I need him to sign. Doesn't need that. Oh. He was the only one that didn't sign it. This is because it's a special meeting, if he happens to ask.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought I would look that in case someone needed a pen.
Do we have to have speaker cards, or it doesn't matter?
What?
We don't have to have speaker cards.
I've never had them
No? Oh, okay,
that I
'cause it's
know
not
of, but
really-
that doesn't mean
Got it.
anything.
No, I mean, it's just advisory, so.
Yeah, there's no, yeah.
Okay.
There's no decisions to be made. It is a public meeting, though.
Is this to do that?
Huh?
Does this do that? Make it go up and down?
At the if you just want, well, you don't have to worry about it because I'll come in and turn it off.
Okay. But I mean, to control the slides, is it this do it?
Oh no, that'll be your mouse.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we'll just,
That's just the TV.
yeah.
Got it.
In the event this thing goes to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
detail my password.
Oh,
Capital T, @ MI 2025.
okay.
Okay,
And it's,
Dadich T. Which that will probably still be in there. You'll probably just need to do
Oh.
the.
okay, so is that how I spelled it right? T-A-T.
So when do you complete your turn around the sun? Your birthday.
Oh, April 4th? We'll
Nice.
see. See if I survive another one.
Right? Well, see, I always know when there's a birthday because I get delivered the cards, but they
Yeah.
don't tell me what day.
Ah,
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So,
oh, it's nice of Steve even to sign it. We were on opposite ends of the bench there when they were doing the
Who was that?
outlets.
Who's
Steve
that?
Knobloch, he was representing the developer.
What end was he on? The developer?
the developer side, that's what, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the developer side.
But
Are they, there's some people.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll go get him. I'll go get
I'm
him.
gonna go look for Christopher. Okay.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
did Chris work with you on this one?
Yes, yes.
He's a good resource for what's happened in the past.
Yes.
One of the few left.
Yes, right? They are a treasure. For sure.
Yeah, he's got to be here. Probably pushing 17, 18 years, somewhere in that
I
ballpark.
think he's been here a long time. I remember when I came in here for permits and he was at the counter.
That was a while back, okay.
Yes,
You're starting to
yes.
date yourself a little bit. Careful.
So there's plenty of seats that are aligned.
Hello.
You find that you there's-
Hi. There's some more chairs. You know what? The committee will sit here. I'll be making the presentation, so you can sit over here on this back end, or if we need more chairs over here.
I get accused of a lot of things. So
Hey,
it's
there.
all
All right.
right.
Hello. That works. Hello. I'm Ray. I'm Laura Corey.
Laura, hi,
Nice to
nice to
meet
meet you.
Jennifer. Yes. Nice to meet you. Yes.
Final
Hello,
Sid.
Sid.
Yes. I know, Sid. How you going? Go ahead and have a seat, and then
Are those corner chairs available?
no, I'll pull them down.
Yeah, you can drag those over.
Yeah. I'll pull
It's
them
easiest, then we're all facing.
Oh, okay.
This is good.
We good? Yeah, you should be good. Yes, we good.
Thank you.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
just gonna make my presentation first, and then we'll have the committee will ask questions, and we'll go from there. And then you can have a time to speak, and
Yeah.
Okay.
okay. Yes. And we don't have speaker
I
cards.
believe you have 20 minutes to speak. 10
I think it's
This is-
10 minutes total, like 3
Yeah.
minutes
10 minutes.
each.
This is nothing like the planning commission hearing.
Yeah.
This is basically working across the table with each other.
So, over this one.
So we're just waiting for a few, 2 more commissioners, and then Christopher Wrights, our senior planner, is going to be in attendance.
Thank you.
Yes.
Who were you working with when you were processing plans?
A lot of times I'll work on my own, unless I have questions. I'll talk to David. You know what? Even Jonathan, for that matter, he's very available. He has always made time for us. So yeah, everybody. And Zach Ream, also the principal planner. He's always, especially with coastal, his experience with coastal has
Oh,
been
yeah.
yes.
Good,
Hello, Mr. Camp. How are you?
how are you?
Good. Full house. So we have the applicants, their contractor, and then
Hi.
neighbors, and I'm
How's it
sorry,
going,
are you
Senior?
a neighbor or a committee member? Someone
No,
was saying
my
that.
neighbor also
Okay.
the
Good.
president of the HOA.
Recovering from
Jeremy.
staying out of trouble?
Okay.
Well, almost.
What was going on yesterday?
Yeah, I had 2 lenses put in the right eye yesterday, of all times, and the recovery
So you could read that and
well, kind of. Better than I could.
close enough. Huh? Good. Yeah, I need an upgrade on my LASIK. Had it done like 20 years ago. But, hey, Christopher, how you
How you
doing?
doing? Doing well. How are you doing?
They've got it down pat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it the machine, the laser machine?
No, it was hand surgery by the gal
Yeah.
through Harvard Eye,
Okay.
and
Yeah, that's where I go. That's where I got mine done. She looks good with glasses, but yeah, I don't know. I can't
You need them for distance, that's for sure.
how you doing, Chris?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Good.
You enjoying living in Seattle?
Seattle. The last 4
Feels
days.
like it.
Fine.
Last week was beautiful.
Last week, yeah.
Last week was amazing.
Monday morning.
Yeah, we were in the low 70s there for a couple of days, and then it's back to chilly.
Yeah.
Just give
This
you a
is
little
supposed to get like
teaser,
this
that's
until
it.
So I heard.
Yeah.
We had a wiffle ball tournament on T Street for the Subcommittee softball, and I actually got a sunburn. I'm like, it feels like sun. Nice. I like it.
We're
Yeah,
from
be careful
Seattle.
about that. We used to be my age.
So,
So you know.
Also,
I'm running for
familiar
shade
with this
where I go.
gray
Yeah.
skies and, yeah.
Yeah. We have May gray, June gloom, and then we're set for July, August, and September and
Yeah,
October.
in Seattle, there's always gray.
That's
There's
in
no
theory.
neighborhood.
It seems like summers have been shifting a little bit.
yeah,
on the calendar,
I agree with that, yeah.
So is
I blame you.
as far as we know, Cameron's
I haven't heard yet.
actually ran into him and his wife at Costco
My son
Oh.
went to Park
on the
City
weekends.
just
I never
now,
met her
and
before.
we had reports of snowing and snowing.
She's pretty
It's
funny.
there.
I said something like,
Christine
yeah,
went
Cameron's a
through
great
mountains of
chairman
snow.
of the
But
planning
down where
commission.
we live, it's like
tells
no
us what
snow. I
to
said,
do,
what
and
happened
we-
to all the snow? I
we
got
do
all
it.
these alerts.
You gotta
She
get
goes, well, that's the only place he gets to do that.
I like her already.
That's funny.
I guess this I just need to sign.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah,
Last time I said for
I
the
didn't have
special
any changes
meeting.
on the minutes, so should be fine doing that.
in a bunch of different colors and whatnot. And if you
Really weird when you have windows that are off your screen.
Trying to corral all your windows, huh?
It's like they're like everything is
it's old.
not
A
viewable.
lot of times with the mobile home parks, most cities don't want mobile home parks with
There you go.
Thank you.
I've only got the one item.
And I think she wanted you to sign that one whenever you're, I don't know.
I think we
I
need
think it
to,
was a small edit or something like that. Oh, that's the special meeting?
oh, that's for today.
Mhm.
Okay. They just put accept.